Okay, so this session is about SDG 7. It's Transformative, Sustainable, and Equitable Energy Transition. Session is about SDG 7. It's Transformative, Sustainable, and Equitable Energy Transition. Session is about G7. It's
Play. 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 Play.
Hello, Mike.
okay. So I hope we're stable. Yeah. So we're going to have a really interesting session today because we have really great speakers here that will share very different perspectives. But I think maybe you'll find common threads in there on sustainable energy transition. We're going to start with two presentations, one from Bangladesh, the other from Pakistan, around the efforts around this sustainable transition, sustainable energy transition. And then afterwards, we're going to hear other perspectives. My colleague from Bangkok, Suba, will share some maybe insights, perspectives around financing of this energy transition. And then we have also regional perspective from SARC Energy Center. And then civil society. We have one from, well, civil society generally, and then youth as well. So really interesting. I'll keep the time so that we can have a discussion too. And yes, and I hope online you're able to hear us. But let me then ask His Excellency, the Ambassador, hold on. His Excellency Ambassador of Bangladesh in Bangkok, who is also SCAP's permanent representative from Bangladesh, Mr. Fayaz Mushid Kazi, to start with the presentation on Bangladesh's journey to sustainable energy.
The PowerPoint, I have misplaced it. What, sorry? The PowerPoint, the pointer. Okay. Oh, thank you. You have in front of you. Oh, right. But is it working? Yes. Oh, thank you. Maybe I stand up a little bit. Yeah. You have started with actually the most ignorant person about the subject. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. So we are trying to settle down, but thank you very much for having us. I'm not the subject expert, but the program has been arranged in a way that you have to bear with me for a while. This is not really a very exhaustive presentation, but I received it from our Energy and Mineral Resources Division under the Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources. So with that caveat, please, again, don't expect anything much from my presentation. So since we are talking about SDG 7, of course, as far as Bangladesh is concerned, there are three particular issues that we attach importance to. One is definitely universal access to energy. Then, increased investment in renewable energy and improving energy efficiency, obviously. So a very kind of brief snapshot of the power sector of Bangladesh, the architecture. As you can see, we do have a power division and also an energy and mineral resources division, which are both under the Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources. On this side, you see the Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission. That is an important component of this whole architecture. And then, of course, like many other countries, we have these entities which cover or address issues concerning generation, transmission, and distribution. Again, the power system at a glance, a lot of statistics here. Be entirely true. Access to electricity, at least 10% of the population, they have access. But even if it's not 10%, at least it's very close. That's something that we did celebrate. But then again, it's a mixed picture. And maybe during our conversations moving on, we can talk about that a little bit. One thing to flag that because of our topography, it's not really possible to bring the entire territory of the country through off-grid distribution. So in that case, solar energy and all these alternative power generation facilities are actually the solutions. But then again, per capita generation, it stands at 640 kilowatt at the moment. And you see the figures for maximum generation capacity and grid capacity over there. I will not go into the details. If we look at the energy sources, that's probably one thing that relates to the sustainable energy transition plan that we are talking about. So natural gas is, of course, the predominant source for power, followed by heavy fuel oil, furnace oil here. And then in third place comes on-grid solar and wind. Wind, of course, a much smaller portion. And fourth position is taken up by coal, followed by diesel. Import is also taking up some share, and a very small percentage of hydroelectric facilities. This is kind of a projection towards 2050. So as you can see, we will probably be catching up Pakistan population size by that time. But at the same time, there is this projected trajectory for per capita generation as well as per capita consumption. And I'm assuming that most people in the room are conversant with these kind of data, so I will restrain myself from explaining it further. Again, category-wise power generation. Here again, as I said, the situation is pretty mixed. The figure with renewable is kind of somewhere around 2%, which is definitely not ideal. So non-renewable still accounts for 81.69%. And imports, as I said, particularly from some of the neighboring countries, it's amounting to 16.73%. Now, talking about imports, if we quickly take a look at the cross-border electricity trade arrangements that we currently have in place, basically from India and Nepal, Bhutan is something that is under discussions. There is a small project that is kickstarting, but then again, as you can see from the map, we do not share border with either Nepal or Bhutan. So we do have to have the transmission line via India. And that is a trilateral discussion that we continue to have. Of course, we keep our other neighbor, Myanmar, in mind as well, because they have a lot of potential for generating hydroelectricity and other sources of power. But then again, due to the prevailing situation in Myanmar, that is probably not yet a viable proposition. But this is also something that we do have in consideration. Quickly, taking a look at the arrangements that we have with India, between Bangladesh and India. There are some of these projects that are there. It's just showcasing them on the map, but if we want to go into the details, then you can see particularly these 4 projects that we do have currently running with India. And the last one, actually, the Adani power plant from Jharkhand, India, that has been subject of a lot of discussion, and that helps provide 1,496 megawatt of powers. But there is also in number 3, as you can see, the other ones are also considerable as far as our imports from India is concerned. As I said, we do also have started importing from Nepal after much protracted negotiations. So we have started with 40 megawatt power from Nepal through the Indian transmission line, and that project is envisaged to grow further. Now, moving on to the sustainable energy plan, what we would like to focus on is the national policy framework concerning the renewable energy policy, which is very latest, 2025. Then there is the NEET metering guideline, which has again come out this year in 2025, and energy efficiency and conservation master plan, which is slightly dated, but very much relevant for the current situation. The present government, we now have an interim dispensation, a non-political interim dispensation. So they have introduced these 15-year income tax holiday structure for renewable energy generation. As you can see, it's quite lucrative, should be business friendly. Again, the details are available, and I'm not going into details. Solar power generation current scenario. I mean, yesterday, as you heard, some of you may have heard, our Minister for Environment, Climate Change, she has been talking about Pakistan's situation, which is very encouraging as far as solar power generation is concerned. I was actually visiting our new High Commission premises in the diplomatic enclave, not very far from here. And I was very encouraged to see that the whole premises, the whole building, have installed solar rooftop solar panels actually. But in case of Bangladesh, again, as you can see, it's a work in progress basically. Again, it's a recent development ever since this interim administration had come into office. They have floated a number of tenders for solar power projects, and some of these are in the planning stage and so forth. In case of rooftop generation and other installations, you can see some of the figures here. Again, further detail on that. I mean, only 16 plants are connected to the grid that are operational at the moment, but 13 projects have already been approved. And again, as I said, at tender stage, there are 55 projects which are in the process of bidding and so forth. One thing to take note of maybe, rooftop again, 3,500 plus installations. Now, one data which you may have come across is that Bangladesh boasts having one of the largest solar home systems in the world. That is thanks to the work of some of our biggest NGOs that have been trying to provide these off-grid solutions to our rural households, particularly in the coastal areas and so forth, that had been a bit inaccessible. So that generated the popularity of off-grid solar home systems. And there is one particular organization called Equitable, which has been in the forefront of that initiative. And again, those who are interested, I would encourage you to look into Equitable's website and their work that could be somewhat relevant, especially for remote and inaccessible parts of here in Pakistan and other countries. Some of the large-scale solar initiatives, again, not huge initiatives, but the reason I wanted to show these photos is one thing that you would realize that Bangladesh is a very land-scarce country. We are 180 million plus people in a rather small territory. So installing big, large-scale solar power plants remains kind of a challenge for us. There are, of course, discussions about water-based or river-based solar power plants and so forth, and rooftop and so forth. But to find land, especially arable lands, transferring arable lands for solar power plants, that continues to remain a challenge. And that's why the government has decided to go for installing rooftop solar in all educational, private and government institutions. Again, this is a work in progress, but the target is to have at least 3,000 megawatt of solar power by 2045. And that would obviously lead to a considerable amount of saving, and the output would be valued at, in our currency, 25,000 crore plus taka. So to cap off, finally, I think I would like to leave with this proposition that if anybody is interested, Bangladesh does have a lot of potentials, unmet potentials, because as I said, that it is just something that is starting. So again, there are some investment advantages that we can offer. The compelling economic and regulatory tailwinds is something that I wanted to indicate, but at the same time, the substantial market size that will continue to be growing, and we have talked about the tax incentives and so forth. And lastly, this is probably the last slide, yes, talking quickly a bit about energy efficiency. Again, we talked about the master plan, but this is also something that is actually the priority at this point in time as far as SDG 7 is concerned, because of how to prevent leakage, system loss, and so forth. That remains an overriding concern as everywhere. One last point, there is a lot of focus on clean cook stove initiatives. This is kind of a global initiative that is growing, and again, in Bangladesh, in our rural areas, including especially in the Rohingya refugee camps that we have in Cox's Bazar, where we have 1.3 million refugees who are living. I mean, the emphasis on clean cook stove, generation, that is definitely a priority. So again, just a quick idea about the different avenues that we are trying to explore the possibilities for energy efficiency and so forth. So to avoid the risk of betraying my ignorance further, I think I'll stop at this point and leave it to Paul.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. No, excellent presentation, very informative. Again, really situated in this context of Bangladesh, and with its, both opportunities, really good practices, but also challenges as well. Please keep that in your mind as we move back to Pakistan now. And I hope Mr. Faisal Sharif Mohammed is online.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm online.
So, Mr. Mohammed, he's the Director for Environment at the Private, Public and Infrastructure Board, the Ministry of Energy, Power Division of the Government of Pakistan. He's currently outside Pakistan, which is why he's joining online. But please, over to you with your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just let me share my slides. Can you please see my slides?
Yes, we can see them.
Yeah, thank you so much. And a very good morning to distinguished delegates, colleagues and participants. And thank you so much, UNSK, for organizing this event and for your partnership and support in advancing SDG 7 agenda in the region. And my apologies for not being in Islamabad. I'm in UK for my doctorate study, so I can be online. And I'll try to be brief. I'll share Pakistan's journey towards SDG 7 and broad journey towards energy transition. So just a minute. Yeah. So Pakistan is obviously like many global South countries. Pakistan is most vulnerable to climate change, and it's not a rhetoric. It's a fact that with less than 1% share in global GHG emission, we are the most vulnerable to the climate change. And it's clearly illustrate the climate injustice that the countries, those who contribute less, are paying more. And according to ADB, this climate vulnerability has been posing threats on Pakistan energy security, food security, water security, the loss of crop. According to ADB, the annual loss to crop is around $1.9 billion. And then the country has been facing frequent extreme weather events. Between 2000 and 2018, as per the World Bank reports, we faced 171 major natural disaster events, costing us a $30 billion loss. And then the floods in 2022 alone caused a damage of $30 billion, while the recent floods in 2025 again affected 6 million people in the country and claimed nearly 1,000 lives, including 250 children. So this shows the limit of the adaptation in Pakistan. And while we cannot adopt without mitigating, so in view of these growing challenges, the country, despite having a very low share in the carbon emissions and the greenhouse gas emissions, the country has shown a very strong commitment towards its green transition, towards its low carbon economy. And under NDC 2021, it sets a targets of 50% reduction in projected emission by 2030, 15% from its own resources, and 35% subject to international support. In this transition, the energy, in broader transition, the energy transition remain at the center of this green transition with 60% share of renewable, including hydro, by 2030. Apart from that, in 2022, with the help of UNESCAPE in collaboration with PPIB and SDPI, we developed SDG 7 roadmap that basically provides an integrated pathways towards achieving affordable and reliable energy for all by 2030. So I just briefly share the findings of that SDG roadmap. That in 2021 we had 93.6% excess of electricity, including 77% grid connected and remaining off grid. But right now I think it's 97% with 89% grid connected population. So that's another issue I'll discuss in the later slides. What excess actually mean? Whether this excess is actually mean that people are getting the reliable and affordable electricity, or that is just a mere the connections are the like installations of meters at their premises. So clean cooking is the area where I think the progress is lacking with 49% in 2021, and even with all the efforts, it's projected that the country can achieve 59% by 2030. So still 41% of population will be relying on the non-clean fuels. So energy efficiency is another area where we achieve a progress from 5.1 megajoule per US dollar to 4.8 between 2021 and 2010. But to achieve the SDG 7 targets, we need to decrease it to further 4.1 megajoule per US dollar. So these SDG targets, while the country is achieving some progress, but there are also the challenges. And SDG 7 is particular. All the SDGs are important, but particularly SDG 7, I think it's at the heart of, it's a prerequisite to many other SDGs, including poverty, health, education. So that's very important for the country to achieve progress on SDG 7. And within SDG 7, the clean energy transition plays a very important role, the increasing share of renewable. So to operationalize these targets, the country has a very robust policy architecture. Pakistan started the liberalization of electricity sector in 1992, and by 2025, the country has more than 25,000 megawatts of installed capacity through private sector, which is being processed by the PPIB under the Ministry of Energy, and that accounts for 60% share. So right now, the 60% share in the generation is coming from the private sector. And moving forward, we have more focus on the private sector participation in the sector to achieve development of the sector to achieve the energy transition targets and SDG 7 targets. So the country has various policies and plans. Right now, the Nation Electricity Policy 2021 is an overarching policy that particularly focused on the indigenization and clean energy sources to enhance the affordability of the electricity supplies. Then we have Nation Electricity Plan, which provides implementation pathways and targets for different entities. Renewable Energy Policy 2029, which is a very marketable policy, provide incentives and simplified framework to investors to set up renewable projects. It sets the targets of 30% share of on-grid ARE generation projects. So these 30% does not include the hydro. When I say 60%, so it includes the hydro plus ARE. The major reforms in Pakistan electricity sector right now is that it's transitioning towards multiple buyer markets. Right now, we are in the single buyer markets. Our competitive trading bilateral content market is near operationalization, and that will enhance the competition, promote the investments, and bring the transparency and discipline in the sector. And that will be kind of like improve the renewable energy generation and overall energy mix. It will provide the platform for B2B sales and also for the merchant plants. So it will provide the alternate options to increase the share of renewable energy. Electricity vehicle policy currently is in practice, setting the target of 30% by 2030. The National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Action Plan aims to reduce the energy by 9 million tons of oil equivalent by 2030, and that will corresponds to reduction in emission by 2030 of 35 million ton of CO2 equivalent. Recently, Pakistan has announced the carbon market policy, that is a policy guidelines for carbon trading to operationalize the Article 6 of the Paris agreements, and that will help to improve the climate financing and streamline the renewable developments as well. So these are, apart from that, we are also developing the climate prosperity plan. The green taxonomy, which is first ever taxonomy for Pakistan, has been approved, and that aligns the investment flows with the SDGs, clearly categorizing the green economic activities. So far, with the help of these policies, Pakistan has achieved some remarkable progress on the clean energy transition. While under the NDCs, 15% shares were set from countries' own resources, and that have been largely met. And the energy sector remains at the center of, at the heart of the achievements of carbon emission reduction targets. We have set the 60% share, and right now the Pakistan has already 40% share in the grid capacity of the clean sources and if we include the nuclear, it's 50%, by the way. The recent surge in the solar distributed generation, as of July 2025, the rooftop solar net metering installation has crossed 380,000 with capacity of 5.8 gigawatts. The country has already put a moratorium on imported coal in 2020 to promote clean energy. And then during last couple of years, 5 power plants of more than 2.5 gigawatts thermal projects has been retired. So that's again contributed towards reduction in the emissions. Progress on EV remains modest due to various reasons, but obviously the policy is there and the government is pushing it to achieve some progress by 2030. And other parallel transition, which is very important from Pakistan's point of view, is a kind of a non-net metered distributed solar installations at household and at small industrial level. In the last few years, Pakistan imported more than 22 gigawatts of solar panel, mostly from China, of more than $4.1 billion of import. And Pakistan has become the second largest market of the solar PV products, of Chinese solar PV products, after it's the second largest market. And while these installations have been helping the country to achieve the clean energy transition targets, but it is already posing some threats towards the grid stability, the revenue of the discos, and some other economic and technical issues, which I'll discuss in the later slides. So now, if we see at the generating capacity mix for Pakistan, I have taken these figures from our indicative generation capacity expansion plan, which is a planning tool, planning documents prepared by independent system market operator, and is currently under approval by the NEPRA. So as of 2020, we have 50-50 share of clean energy and the fossil fuel based generation capacity. The clean energy also include the nuclear. And then by 2035, there's a drastic change. The clean energy share is going to increase by 70%. While the share of fossil fuels will be decreasing by to 30%. So this is a major shift, and it also brings some new challenges and opportunities. While the generating capacity is important, the actual thing is that how much energy actually you generate from these clean sources. So as of 2025, the share of clean energy in Pakistan's energy mix is around 59%. And by 2035, this is going to increase by 87%, like 70% from the renewable hydro and remaining from the nuclear. So this is a major shift. So the Pakistan energy transition is not now a theoretical, but it's a very action oriented, and there's a remarkable progress. Moving forward, we have larger share of wind and solar. The solar share is going to increase from 8% to 18%, and these shares are the grid-based electricity generation. I'm not taking into account the distributed off-grid solar installation. Those are separate from these figures. So now at this stage,
one more minute, please.
Okay, the Pakistan energy transition has been entering in new phase. Pakistan has submitted its NDC 3 with the revised targets, where 17% of the shares of the emission reduction will be achieved by country-owned resources. And in that NDCs, this renewable share is 62%. There is no new fossil fuel-based projects in our new IGSAP. there's plan to retire 12 thermal power plants of 2.6 gigawatts, and the grid carbon intensity due to increasing share of renewable is going to decrease from 278 to 105, which will be even lower than the OECD countries. So, but to achieve these targets, the country need an investment of 308 billion against energy transition, energy efficiency. So that's a huge investment. So obviously there are some challenges. We have limited financing. There's a weak need to a weak institutional capacity, some restricted access to advanced technologies, and we are exploring the carbon markets, different ATM, energy transition mechanism, JETPs, debt to climate swaps. We also have facing some issues in the data monitoring. There are significant gaps and lack of standardization in climate monitoring and SDGs targets. Then we have some issues in the grid infrastructure, the transmission distribution system constraints that limits the largest share of renewable energy. So we need to augment that. And obviously, Pakistan has some issue in the energy intensity. There's some energy efficiency issues in the industry, building, and transport sectors. So to achieve energy transition targets, I think the climate finance is one of the core area where we need to work. Then we need to work on the institutional capacity to enhance institutional capacity and in a more coordinated way to implement these policies. Pakistan imported 22 gigawatts of solar panels in last few years, so we need to localize the solar PV chain. Here we need to work with the Chinese partner to build the localized value chain for the solar PV. We also need to develop some solar waste recycling because there are a lot of solar flux, and after a few years the solar panels will be retiring, so we need to have a proper solar waste recycling mechanism. While Pakistan has been putting efforts to achieve the targets, I think the regional cooperation with the south and southwest countries are very important to mobilize the climate finance. We have the similar issues on the climate justice and energy transition. So we need to foster the joint innovation, the R&D projects, and we can have some promote a knowledge sharing platform using escapes platforms and some cross-border trade and investments. So I think moving together, we can achieve far more than individually, as we have some common issues and in terms of poverty, in terms of energy access. So I think this is really a good platform where we can work together to achieve our energy transition and SDG 7 targets. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. Really comprehensive presentation on Pakistan's journey towards sustainable energy transition. We've heard from two countries, Bangladesh and Pakistan, very different actually countries, but you know the issues, obviously there are many commonalities there as the goal remains the same for both. We're going to zoom out a little bit now to look at the sub-region, well, region, depending on how you frame it, South Asia. And we're really honored to have, actually we are in Islamabad, so of course the SAARC Energy Center. We have Mr. Hassan Javed, who's a research fellow. And yeah, please share, I mean, perspectives of, you know, regional cooperation in South Asia. We heard a lot about that yesterday in the opening session on how to accelerate SDGs, how to, you know, break through regional cooperation, which is very advantageous to address very common issues in countries across the sub-region. So over to you, please. About 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much to UNESCAPE and to SDPI for inviting us at this forum. We have listened to some excellent presentations from the colleague from Bangladesh and Pakistan. So our center is basically a regional center based in Islamabad, which is working for the promotion of renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy trade in South Asia region. So the main goal of the center is that the activities are performed based on the inputs what we get from the member states of South Asian countries. For example, if a country like Bangladesh or Bhutan has some requirement or it requires some capacity building initiatives, then it requests us, and then we do conduct activities in form of research studies, knowledge sharing webinars, training workshops, seminars, plus we also do conduct small pilot scale projects. The funding of the center is provided by the member states. So the regional cooperation is one of the pillars of this SAARC Energy Center, to which it was built. And up till now, we have done regional cooperation with the international institutions such as World Bank, Asian Development Bank, UNESCAPE. Plus, we have recently signed an MOU with IRENA, which is the International Renewable Energy Agency based in Abu Dhabi. Plus, on top of that, there are other regional organizations like OLADE, it is a Latin American energy organization, which is the African Energy Commission. So we have conducted regional workshops whereby the representatives from these regional organizations do come back to us. For example, we had a workshop conducted in Bali back in 2013, whereby the representative from African Energy Commission plus the Latin American Energy Organization and the ASEAN Center of Energy and Energy Center. So these four regional centers representatives met together over there in a single conference, and they tried to get in touch with each other and to conduct programs based on mutual interest and based on some activities which have been very successful in one region, which could be replicated in our region. So the idea basic is that whatever is being implemented successfully in a country or in any region, that example should be replicated and informed through workshops, webinars, and activities to the other countries. So they could also follow the same model in their own countries and implement those activities. So thank you very much. That's from my side.
Of it. SCAP shares similar mission mandate of regional cooperation, and really where you have countries who are, negotiating, I guess, cooperation at the bilateral level or trilateral level. Of course, that space is absolutely critical. And, our question is there something we can do to, help more of it or to facilitate or accelerate it? So, thank you for raising those activities that SARC Energy Center is engaged with. We're going to shift a little bit. One of the issues that come across every SDG discussion is financing and the lack of financing. Of course, with what we're seeing in the world today, development financing is really dropping very drastically. And how do countries, finance this kind of transition, which does require investments and very important for the people. So I'm going to ask my colleague from Bangkok, Ms. Subhati Rai Shivakumaran, the Chief of Section of the Macroeconomic Policy and Financing for Development, who's online to give some insights, perspectives, maybe words of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. And just let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
And there is a presentation up too.
Excellent. Thanks very much to all the distinguished guests and His Excellency, and thank you very much to SDPI for inviting us to be a part of this together with SCAP. So having heard, I think, the previous colleagues present, our presentation today is really going to be looking at the financing issues, as Ms. Tanaka mentioned, both at a regional level, but also in the case of Pakistan, which is a country in South Asia that we will be working in, we are commencing work in with regards to this. So if we look at the region, energy transition financing is both a significant challenge as well as an opportunity. For one thing, energy transition investment reached a record 2 trillion, with Asia Pacific being a leading recipient in 2023, attracting over 45% of this global total of 2 trillion. And the growth is driven by abundant resources, demand, favorable policies. But on the other hand, the required growth to achieve both SDG 7 and energy transition in full is estimated to be about 2.2 to 2.4 trillion annually, in addition to what has already been achieved. And the other challenge, of course, is that energy transition investment remains concentrated in a limited number of countries. In fact, the least developed countries in Asia Pacific only receive 1.4% of the total. So despite the progress or the, misaligned priorities persist still. And of course, in the region accounts for over 90% of global coal investment in 2023, risking carbon intensive pathways. The urgency, and now looking at Pakistan in particular, the urgency of Pakistan's energy transition continues. The energy landscape, I think, as some colleagues have mentioned, is still critically dependent on imported fossil fuels, predominantly oil, LNG, and coal. And of course, there are moratoriums already announced. The heavy reliance, particularly for power generation, also exposes the economy to severe vulnerabilities on the macro side. Price volatility of oil, denominated in dollars, of course, directly impacts Pakistan's balance of payments. It drains foreign exchange reserves and contributes to a substantial burden. And as we all probably know very well, the structural issue has also exacerbated a persistent circular debt crisis within the power sector. Then if we look at the energy mix, we can see that what we call thermal power, gas, coal, and furnace oil, still accounts for about 46% of total electricity generation. Hydro actually is surprisingly quite high, and other renewables, despite having an installed capacity of almost 12.2%, only generate 4.2% of electricity. And this is notable because I think that points to certain issues around grid integration, transmission losses, energy efficiency issues, and operational inefficiencies, which will then in turn affect the financing burden. As I mentioned, if we look at the macro impact of this dependency, we have the import bill. It accounts for over 25% of total imports, and the outflow of FX reserves weakens the rupee and fuels inflation. If we look at the circular debt issue, as I've mentioned, it is quite complex, but to sort of summarize it, it stems from expensive capacity payments to IPPs for electricity generated, but not always fully utilized or paid for. And then, of course, the high interest rates and the sovereign credit risk and the sovereign macro issues also significantly raises the cost of capital for all projects. So this makes renewable energy projects relatively unbankable and not as competitive, particularly because they require massive upfront investment in capital with returns coming over 20 years. And then when the interest rates are high, it significantly affects that bankability. So what are some other constraints on financing around renewable energy deployment? And this is true actually from our research and from our work across all of Asia Pacific, including Southeast Asia as well as South Asia. So institutional coordination is a challenge. There's fragmented governance and overlapping mandates. That delays project approvals and policy implementation. When project approvals are delayed for like 2 to 3 years at a time, that raises the cost of the working capital. It raises the cost of the capital that is needed to finance it. So that is a specific challenge. And then, of course, perhaps a lack of a unified national vision further creates significant bureaucratic hurdles. And this sends signals to investors around what is the feasibility of making very long-term investments in this sector. Concessional finance and access to that continues to be a challenge. There is simply not enough low-cost international concessional financing for the renewable projects that are needed. And that's both a challenge with the MDBs as well as philanthropic and other bilateral development partners, and more definitely needs to be done around that. And of course, then finally, the grid infrastructure, the lack of smart grid technologies, transmission capacity, limited energy storage solutions means that there's a curtailment of renewable energy mobilized in the grid. And private sector engagement in off-grid solutions remains limited due to regulatory barriers as well. There is progress on green finance, and I think there was a promising first green Eurobond. The Indus bond was issued about 4 years ago, and notably it was oversubscribed 6 times. So there is international investor confidence in Pakistan's green initiatives. We understand that Pakistan is also planning to issue sustainable, which means there will be a green and renewable energy component to it, panda bonds, which is a Chinese renminbi denominated bond by a non-Chinese issuer in the Chinese onshore market, and we anticipate actually that it will be quite attractive. And we understand that there's carbon pricing policies and trading schemes that will, carbon credit-based trading schemes that are also in play. On the positive side, of course, as we all know, there's been an exponential growth in rooftop solar and solar energy adoption. But if this is not sufficiently integrated with the grid, and particularly still, if the fuel mix is still 43% on thermal, this will be a challenge to issue more green finance for future renewable energy projects. So on Pakistan itself, as we've said, we've looked forward.
1 more minute, please.
Okay, to effectively bridge this investment gap and accelerate the transition. A comprehensive energy transition and investment plan is indispensable, and I think there are plans to begin this, and that will take into account the blended finance, the regulatory frameworks, the project finance issues around land, around tax, and around electricity, this is where ESCAP will be supporting as we go forward in the future. So I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Very interesting, actually, and compliments, what has been presented earlier. Thank you. I think there may be questions later. Okay, so I'm going to move on. We'd like to hear from a wider perspective of the populations and I would say South and Southwest Asia. We have representatives, I would say, from civil society. Really happy to have them here. So let me start with Mr. Mohammed Amin Kerio. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah.
Chairperson from the Sindika Reform Society of Pakistan. Yeah, civil society perspective on sustainable energy transition. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you are getting my voice. Thank you very much. And welcome to all distinguished guests who has visited Pakistan. Welcome. Regarding the civil society perspective, civil society in regional areas always supporting government and private initiatives for the solar systems, and even at the very rural areas and very remote areas. But the role of civil society in planning and decision making is very limited in this process. Some national governments are also considering to adopt the taxes over the solar energy and other things. We are also requesting governments to avoid this practice because this will affect the SDG 7. Accordingly, some governments have announced very initiatives and incentives for the poor peoples, but political influence on the ground that doesn't reach on the poor peoples, and political influence affect the poor peoples and reach to poor peoples. That's why civil society requests governments to ensure the transparency in these initiatives. And also, there's a good chance that, as the ESCAP presentation said, that there's the carbon credits. So civil society must be aware and must be trained on carbon credits so that they can work on it, because we are civil society is working mostly on most remote areas, even on solar energy, biogas, and also the wastewater treatments. Wastewater has also carbon credits, and green energy has also carbon credits. So we request the focus on these our suggestions and discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very succinct. I think that's the most succinct civil society intervention I heard. We'll have more questions later. Okay, so let me pass on to Ms. Mahnor Rashid, who is the Partnerships and Grants Manager at Politics for Her Asia Pacific in Pakistan. And I just wanted to kind of explain also that while she is part of a civil society network for not just Pakistan, but also Asia Pacific, she also represents a youth, part network of this. So we'd like to hear, youth perspectives, anything else, maybe even gender perspectives, since you are the valuable gender balancing person here as well. So over to you. You can take more time because, yes, Mr. Hero has been very generous with the time.
Thank you so much. Definitely, I really want to highlight that yesterday, the UNEP published its emissions cap report, tracking the path we are on currently with regards to the NDC 3.0 we have submitted. And the very unfortunate news is that we are on track of 2.5 degrees Celsius, and there is quite literally no hope for us to achieve 1.5 degrees Celsius anymore. This is the first report that is acknowledging this fact that 1.5 degrees is no more achievable in the current trajectory that we have. So, talking about youth, talking about sustainability, we need to quite literally focus upon the word sustainability itself first. That it quite literally means that we use our current resources in a way that the future generations can also benefit from them when they come. But the reality today is that we are utilizing up these resources in a very unsustainable manner, despite the fact that we have been having these regional and global negotiations for the past 3 decades. And we are still nowhere, or I'd say we're just still starting. So the entire image that currently we are like facing is really gloomy, and that is the future that is being left for not just the upcoming generations, but our children that are right now on this planet. That said, energy transition, when we talk about energy transition, often we talk about making energy accessible. But accessible only means that you put a bulb run on renewable energy in someone's house, and that is not enough. It needs to be just. We need to make sure that whatever energy we are making accessible to these populations are actually producing some kind of social outcome. So the women in the household are able to run a business on that energy, so that the farmers are able to run their tube wells on that energy and are actually, you know, supporting their own livelihoods. And this is a question, a matter of justice once again, that we unfortunately do not focus upon much. And talking about bankability, as one of the speakers has rightly said, that there are a lot of capacity issues um, in the region as well as in Pakistan. We know we have to build a proposal for a skyscraper, but the only thing that we know how to do is draw a shed. So there are a lot of capacity issues, and those capacity issues are not only making it difficult for us to produce bankable projects, but also projects that are socially viable. And that is where civil society comes into the picture. We hold those kinds of networks, we understand the cultural barriers, we understand the local ground realities, and therefore making civil society a part of the project's entire life cycle means that whatever project that you are going to produce can, actually deliver upon those results. And most importantly, for investors, civil society can play a huge role in politically de-risking the project, because that is one of the main issues that we face, and therefore the high interest, as were highlighted earlier, because of the political risks that are involved, the capacity risks that are involved. So civil society therefore plays a really important role. Secondly, when you talk about just transition or just energy transition, we also need to think beyond our traditional systems thinking. We need to focus upon the system transition as well. And that includes the financial systems that we are currently operating in. We cannot focus entirely upon profits. The current conversation that we are having, the center of this conversation is the corporate. The center of this conversation is the state. But in order to actually ensure that we are talking about sustainability and delivering upon sustainability, the center of this conversation needs to be the people. And therefore, it is extremely important that we bring in decentralized energy projects that are actually owned by the community, and therefore those projects would be more reliable. Those projects would actually deliver, and we have various examples not only in Pakistan but across the region of when the locals were given the power to actually, operate the project. It has actually delivered the results. Indigenous knowledge is important. Local information is important. Yes, the investment needs to come from outside, but they should not be dictating what we need to do in our land. And the middle, the parties, the state, the banks, the private sector needs to ensure that this is made into a reality, that they are not the ones dictating what needs to be done at the ground level. Um, Lastly, civil society, as I said, needs to be made a part of the entire project's life cycle, not only as implementing partners, but are also as accountability partners. Because a lot of the times in our region, one of the issues we face regarding these projects and bringing in investment and finance is corruption, is like malpractices that are involved often, and civil society can play a really good role as a watchdog and play a good role in monitoring these projects and actually providing the kind of feedback that can help us improve the results at a community level, at a local level, so that the transition that we are talking about is actually visible in a real sense, and it is visible at the very, very local level. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Lots of the perspectives you brought in, I think, really, really useful, and also looking at this, not just sustainable energy transition, but just, that part is really, really important. And I would even dare say that, although, yeah, we try to frame it as just, but there is pushback, on using even that term, right? So there is an issue, I think, needs to be challenged. So I'm going to now move to SDPI, who has been obviously, not just a partner in this conference and everything, but also, has been really engaged in, energy research, policy advice, both in the country, but also beyond. And as a think tank too, I'm going to also kind of ask if you could help connect the dots a little bit here, right? How do these countries in South and Southwest Asia move forward? Well, as fast as possible. I mean, I heard that issue that Suba raised about, okay, just to get approvals, if it takes years to do that, I mean, when do you actually implement? How do you do it? And this whole issue of, shed power versus, high-tech power. And I guess with AI data centers in the rise, it's going to require far more energy in a place where population is growing, urbanization is also happening, accelerating, demanding more energy, floods happening, heat waves happening. I mean, it's really, really like so much, convergence here. So to give us some clarity around, what might be some of the lines of how we pull this together, focus. Really, over to you, Dr. Khalid Wali, Research Fellow, Climate Energy of SDPI.
Thank you so much, Makiko. It is very obviously opportune that we are conducting this dialogue, particularly connecting South Asian countries for SDG 7 progress. There are challenges, but there are opportunities as well. I'll highlight a few challenges that have emerged in this opportune time, particularly from Pakistan's case. His Excellency mentioned Bangladesh solar boom. There is a solar boom in Pakistan as well. But that solar boom, which solved Pakistan's affordability crisis, has brought an inclusivity problem in Pakistan as well, because there is a certain section of society that can afford these solar panels. We have installed so much electricity capacity that because of this solar boom, that capacity is now underutilized, and those who cannot afford solar panels, for them, national grid is very expensive. So this transition is causing a problem. We need to bring inclusivity into it, and I think dialogues like this are the way forward to deal with these sort of problems, particularly in terms of SDG 7. SDG 7 focuses on three critical indicators: clean cooking, renewable energy, and lastly, the intensity, particularly focusing on industries. I think renewable energy is the key to it. If we connect rooftop solar boom with our cooking appliances and we electrify our cooking appliances. I think there is a way forward to it that will solve Pakistan's surplus electricity that is being generated through rooftop solar, uh, and then maybe bringing some inclusivity to it. On renewable energy side, Pakistan having a surplus of capacity, installed capacity, which is underutilized. So maybe the next iteration of SDGs uh, beyond 2030, it may include some decarbonization goals as well. So in a way that there is a sunrise on rooftop solar, a distributed generation, and sunset on fossil fuel based power plants, particularly in an economically feasible way, which I think is the need of global south, that we can attract finance as well, particularly if you think it in a terms that carbon markets can be a solution. There is a new initiative, new methodology that is approved by Vera, that is coal to clean credit initiative. That if you are early retiring one young coal power plant, it will generate credits and you can finance that transition using that. So maybe connecting dots as well. And another thing that is not primarily part of SDG, but if you link it with power sector, it becomes, and that is EV, electric vehicles. We have recently seen that Pakistan has begun this journey of electric vehicles, and I can connect it with gender aspect as well. We have seen that the new EV motorbikes, many of the women in Pakistan, they're using that, and it is bringing on this inclusivity angle to it. Third angle that Pakistan direly need is solarization of tube wells in Pakistan for Pakistan's agriculture sector. But again, there is a caveat to associated with it, that if you are solarizing the tube wells for agricultural and particularly for flooded crops, what will happen to the groundwater level? So we need to be sure in those grounds as well. So these are some caveat that comes out of Pakistan's experience. So we need to plan it in a just, equitable, and inclusive way. So this transition, building on the point of Madam, that we need to have a just transition going on. What are different constraints that we are facing, particularly in terms of limited finance, weak institutional capacity? I think in South Asia, particularly in Pakistan, the policy is being done in silos. Ministry of Climate Change is not in alignment with Ministry of Energy Power Division, particularly if you see it from a context that to solve Pakistan's expensive national grid problem, our power division is investing on Pakistan's indigenous coal reserves, whereas on the other hand, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Climate Change, they want to phase out fossil fuels. So if there are TORs that are contradictory, that might not solve the way. Then there is a role of Ministry of Finance as well. Pakistan and Bangladesh, both they are under IMF programs. Pakistan has, following Bangladesh, Pakistan has also signed this resilience and sustainability facility with IMF, which sort of conditional, there is a conditionality in that program that we need to eliminate all these energy subsidies that are being provided to protected consumers. So Ministry of Finance need to be very careful that if we are eliminating all these subsidies, what would be the impact on vulnerable community, protected communities, particularly in vulnerable areas. They are suggesting that instead of blanket subsidies, we provide targeted subsidies through Pakistan's social protection program, that is Benazir Income Support Program. What we suggest is, instead of using Benazir Income Support Program's direct cash grants, use that subsidy to give solar panels to these protected consumers. In that way, this will solve that inclusivity problem that we are having, that those who can afford solar panels, for them electricity price is very low, and those who cannot, electricity price is moving up. Then there are grid constraints as well in Pakistan's case and in South Asia's case as well, particularly in terms of wind industry, that we have surplus electricity capacity. When the demand is down, the first power plant that are to be curtailed are wind power plants. Maybe there are some opportunities in Pakistan's Thatta region, that is the world largest Jimpir wind corridor. We can install BESS solutions, battery energy storage systems. We can generate green hydrogen so that in times of curtailment, that electricity can be reoriented to producing green hydrogen as well. That will solve Pakistan's curtailment problem as well. Lastly, SARC role is very important. I have often suggested that we need to rename SARC. SARC can be renamed as South Asia's Resilience for Climate Change. It will remain SARC, but the meaning will be changed because we are facing one similar problem, that is climate change. There is smog in India, there is smog in Pakistan, there is smog in Nepal, there are floods in Bangladesh, there are floods in Pakistan. So if we sort of agree on one single point, maybe we can make it more operationalized. And lastly, the role of energy transition investment plans is very important. SDPI, with the help of UNSCAP, is working on building energy transition investment plan for Pakistan. Maybe we need to find more political ownership, more community ownership. But the message is that if we want to have a collaborative approach, we need to bring people at the center of it. If we are putting people at the center of it, I think we can overcome these hard realities of geopolitics as well, because the problems of people in South Asia, they are same. Maybe narratives are different, discourse are different, but the problem of people are same. If we target these people, providing them with solutions that are equitable, I think we can solve this energy transition crisis, and we can improve on our sustainable development goal progress as well. Thank you so much, Mickey.
Thank you very much, Khaled. A lot to digest there and to really sink in, golden nuggets, let's put it that way. I'm going to open the floor for questions or any, contributions as succinct as possible so that we can allow for more questions. I'll take a few, and then I think we might have time for a second round for those who'd like to speak from the panel as well. So I asked my colleagues to monitor the online questions. If any, you may have to type it in because you may not be able to speak. So yes, please, sir.
Thank you, madam. Dr. Mohammad Rashid, I want to respond to Dr. Walid. Two queries from my side. One is regarding SARC. SARC has a sister organization, South Asia Cooperative Environment Program, which is working very actively with 8 SARC countries on climate change and other environment issues. And we have South Asia Seas program, which is the 5 countries intergovernmental arrangement. So this is parallel to SARC. There is no need of repetition of SARC into SAQIB. And this organization was also established in 80s along with SARC. Unfortunately, SARC is repeating what SAQIB is doing. And I happen to be the head of SAQIB, so I know it well. Recently, we have big program for 8 countries like this, plastic-free South Asia, as well as there are tremendous program, and these South Asian countries are owning it. So there is no need of renaming SARC. And the beauty is SAQIB is accepted by all the countries. There is no politics, because this climate change monster is affecting India more than Pakistan, and we don't have any problem in uniting to fight for climate change, air pollution. Luckily, there was a air pollution program, the Mali Declaration, which is lost. Otherwise, we have monitoring station along all the borders of Pakistan and India and these bordering countries to monitor and don't throw your burden on other countries, because monitoring stations are established which are not functioning. And even I've been talking to government of Punjab that please look into SAQIB, and there is a Mali declaration. So don't blame them, just coordinate and share the data so the problem will be solved. And we have been doing it in the past. So this was regarding repeating the experience of SARC to we have a well-established organization. Second, very important that you have said on renewable energy, that the sunset time that you took it to fossil fuel. It is not fair. There is a tremendous opportunity which India is availing, which all the South Asian countries I traveled, and we have biogas opportunities which give three product immediately. You get carbon credits, the methane credits, the monster of all greenhouse gases, which is 25 times more valuable than all other GHG. Okay, so why don't we go for this biogas instead of going for these sunset fossil fuel, which you are pumping again the greenhouse gas into atmosphere. Secondly, the technology is so now good in terms of biogas that previously we had a long history of biogas, but now the Chinese doomsday biogas digester are so wonderful. And Pakistan is the fifth largest livestock country. Every second house has got livestock. And why don't you promote this biogas technology in the plains of Punjab, which is tremendous opportunities of producing millions of cubic meter of biogas per day. So our policies are not focused to it. I would like this forum to include in your report some recommendation for our policy makers to include biogas, which has got tremendous opportunity. It give you decomposed manure, which is more valuable than anything else. While producing biogas, it give you decomposed manure in the rural areas. They can get rid of these chemical fertilizers. So these are the two interventions from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, let's take a few more hands. Microphone here, please. And yes, please introduce yourself too.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Ziaullah. I am basically a chemical engineer and I am from Power Cement Karachi. So it was very interactive and very insightful to listen all of you. I just wanted to say that one thing which I saw missing, which my other colleague also identified, that I saw that even in the case of Bangladesh, I haven't seen the use of alternative fuel. So if I talk specifically about power cement, we have 50% switched on renewables like solar, wind, and waste heat recovery. And in the last year, we have replaced 20% of our coal with the biomass, the residue of the crops. So this is very useful, which otherwise already burned in the fields. We collect this biomass and replace it with the coal. And also it was mentioned in the some presentation that around 17 billion USD is our import bill. So I think in solar and wind are all a very good option, but we should also focus on biomass and RDF, and it also fulfills the concept of circularity. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? Over here.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Danish Mahmood from Zabist Islamabad. Transition, we are talking about transition from traditional energy sources to renewable energy sources. And we all know that transition is always a painful thing, especially considering civil societies. We are not thinking to change our terms of practices, our usage, electricity consumption patterns. We are not that much agreeable on implementing the things which are needed to be done. In that case, there are one thing is to implement the policy hardly from the government, and we have to cultivate, we have to make such policies which are beneficial and which are just, as ma'am said and every one of you said. Secondly, I have seen there are many during these transition periods. We are switching from from coal-based or fossil fuel-based power plants up to renewable energy sources, and it doesn't happen overnight. We have a long transition period, maybe 2, 3, 4 decades, so that globally we can cultivate energy from renewable sources. During these times, I have seen there are carbon collecting projects from atmosphere within every industry installed, especially in Canada or in other countries. What is the scope of installing such projects to get carbon emissions from atmosphere in our region? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jean, anything online? No? Okay, right. So I'm going to ask, maybe start with SARC Energy Center, perhaps, and then maybe Khalid, if you have. Is there another hand? Sorry, Daya, please go. Let's just add one more.
Thank you, Mikiko. First of all, I would like to thank all the presenters here. Just I want to highlight some issues in relation to the energy sectors which are to be addressed when we are talking about the energy in our sub-region. First, the climate resiliency and adaptation, this issue has been the very serious challenge because we know all the South Asian countries, they are very vulnerable in terms of natural disasters. We see in recent years, landslide, floods, they have been taking place in all the South Asian countries, and these disasters, they are directly affecting to the projects. For instance, in Nepal, the recently floods have directly affected the hydropower projects. They are damaged. So these things are happening. So my suggestion is the climate resiliency adaptation. This should be directly with the energy transition. And the next point I want to highlight is the regional cooperation is deficient in our sub-region. We know we have SARC, but it is not functioning. However, in the cross-country, projects or the reverse sharing, these things are very important. Even the whole, all the South Asian countries or the SARC countries do not work together, but bilaterally, but trilaterally. They can work on for energy. For instance, recently Nepal, Bangladesh, and India they have a tripartite agreement for the energy. The Bangladesh ambassador rightly mentioned about that things. And the geopolitics and the depoliticization also very important in South Asia, because in terms of hydropower projects, there is some sort of the unhealthy competition between the different countries. These things are all also happening. So this should be addressed. Next and last month, I want to highlight the policy and regulatory challenge. Of course, in all the South Asian countries, we see the policy and the regulatory constraint, the challenges, institutional policy to be seriously considered. Say revision. The policies what we have, and there should be a revision, and we see the bureaucratic hurdles in all the countries, and institutional capacity is also another issue. If we really want to, work on the energy sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else? So, one more here. Just one last one, because also mindful of time.
So my name is Manzoor Ahmed. I'm working as a researcher at Pride. So my question is related to the financing aspect. Most of the transition that has been taking place in Pakistan is self-financed by the people, be it solar, be it EVs, etc. So my question is, so it's related to the collateral and risk mitigation related to financing. So these strategies carries a certain risk for the banks, and they ask for collateral because they cannot finance these. Basically, they call it's unsustainable products that they are financing. So how would you address this issue of collateral and risk mitigation if there are any case studies involved in the global South countries, in Bangladesh or Nepal, etc.?
Thank you very much. Very interesting angle to the financing. So I'm not going to direct questions to anybody. Please, pick up whatever you can respond to. I'm going to start with the SARC Energy Center because there has been quite a few mentions of this, how to boost, this cooperation regionally.
Yes, thank you very much. So first of all, the participant, it was a very good comment. Is it visible? Okay. So very good comment made by our colleague from Sakib that it's if one organization is working, so why we are creating a separate parallel organization on top of that? So to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but Sakib was basically involved for the protection of environment. More emphasis was on the adaptation side. So Energy Center, when it was created, and another center based in India was called Disaster Management, and then center was closed. So the authority thought that energy is very closely linked to environment. So why not just include an environment portion in the energy sector? So it's not a separate environment center being created. It's just that the environment component is integrated with the energy center. So in our future activities, whenever we are conducting any program, be it a research study, a small project, or a workshop, knowledge sharing workshop, the environment component would be taken care of. The other thing was, question was on the regional cooperation is in decline. Yes, due to the current situation of the South Asia region, we could say that the regional cooperation could not be conducted on the level which we envisaged before, but it is being conducted. For example, I can give you a 2 or 3 very short examples. 2 weeks back, we conducted a training in Bhutan, and the Bhutan government requested us that we want to have a capacity building on the high voltage transmission lines being implemented in Bhutan. And they requested us, and then what we did was that we tried to gather experts, regional experts from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and we did a 3 to 4 days training program in Bhutan specifically for their delegates to have capacity building on them. Similarly, in case of Pakistan, when Pakistan was going for these reverse auctioning back in 2015, so they requested us that we want to have a knowledge sharing from the Indian counterparts because they had already implemented reverse auctioning back in India in 2010 or 12. So then we conducted a workshop in Sri Lanka where the experts from India were available there, the Pakistanis met over there, and they were able to share data and information and the forms which were required by the regulatory regime and the policy measures which are required to take up this reverse auctioning in future. Lastly, I would give a small example of Nepal. So Nepal have a hydropower project of called Karnali Chisha Pani, which has a potential of like 10,800 megawatts. So there was a talk that the availability of energy is already met through existing resources of Nepal. So it would, if even if it developed that hydropower plant, where would it export its electricity through? So then India and Pakistan got interested into this project, and this project was called NEPA. For Nepal, the electricity will be transported to India, then Pakistan, or maybe to Afghanistan. So based on that proposal, the ADB conducted some surveillance, some capacity building. They also did some feasibility studies, and then the grid codes were harmonized for all these countries. So my point is that technical work is being carried out. We can't say that the project will be implemented in coming 1 to 2 years time, but you never know how the political landscape changes quickly in 5 to 10 years time. And when that changes, the background should be there. Those foundations should be there whereby you can build those projects and come up to the rare energy trade, which was envisaged earlier.
Thanks so much. Fully agree. I'm going to now move to online to Mr. Faisal Sharif Mohammed from the Pakistan energy perspective. Of course, there are many questions that I think you may be able to, answer or share your perspective on. But so that it doesn't go off your radar screen, I was interested to hear how you see how to break silos between institutions, different policies. I mean, in light of also financial constraints, how do you break that? And apart from the civil society, role of civil society and the work in energy here in Pakistan, for instance, as outreach to communities, bringing in community voice, also accountability, the watchdog part. I'd like to hear your voice on that, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll address the later part first, like the coordination and the breaking of silos. obviously there's certainly an issue of coordination within the governments. The policy frameworks I mentioned, those have been made and are being implemented by different ministries, some by the Ministry of Energy, some by the Ministry of Climate Change, and sometimes there is kind of lack of coordination between these policy, and that obviously creates some kind of policy incoherence. So that is the area where we need to work, and I would not say that is not an issue. That is an issue, and to achieve just energy transition targets, I think there should be a close coordination between the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, and Ministry of Climate Change. Recently, Pakistan is preparing, the Ministry of Finance, with the help of CVF V20, they have prepared the Climate Prosperity Plan, and that plan is kind of an effort to integrate all these energy transition targets, investment targets into one plan, and bringing all the stakeholders together. So obviously there's a need. Further, in the energy sector particularly, I'll say that last 2 or 3 years was really kind of, I would say, game changer, because there's a kind of more discipline in the energy sector in terms of planning policy. We are now following. I would particularly link this with the coal power plant, the retirement of thermal power plants, because now we are following an indicated capacity generation, capacity expansion plan. And that plan is based on the least cost and the set criteria. So it's depoliticizing the technology choices. The government don't have choice to like implement some projects and to stop another projects. So it's based on the IGSAP that we are going to conduct the auctions for the renewable energy projects in the future. So that is going to make it more systematic and more evidence based. And then one thing I think we all must like obviously recognize that being a global South country, we should accept our ground realities. While the energy transition is really important, this is an area where I'm working right now, but not at the cost of the energy security and energy affordability. We need energy, but we need energy security as well. We have just 16% share of coal in our energy mix. And recently, I have gone through a report of Clean Technology Commission. So they mentioned they have like taken a large sample of 480 gigawatts of the projects around the world. And interestingly, they have chosen those projects which are going to retire, and no one and not a single project, not a single one of those projects are a young or a relatively new projects similar to the Pakistani projects, which are relatively a young fleets. So if we're going to retire them in any way, there are a lot of contractual issues. We have long-term agreements. There's a significant debt servicing remaining period. So instead of retiring them, and if, let's say, the development partners are the global North country want us to retire those plants, they should come forward and they should finance that transition, because we cannot do it from our own resources. We are doing much on the climate change, despite the fact that we have very negligible share and we are not historically responsible for this climate disaster. And secondly, on the one point I would like to address is on the financing of the energy sector. Yeah, that's an important area because the financing needs for the energy sector is huge, more than $300 billion for energy transition, the decarbonization of transportation sector, and energy efficiency plans. So I think here's the area where we need to have a capacity building to make a robust proposal for the climate, because the process is very cumbersome. Like the Ministry of Climate Change is designated authority, and we are developing the projects through private sector investment. So how this climate finance can be capitalized for the private sector? So there's a lot of work to be done in that area, and then obviously here the role of development partners come, that how they can make these procedures simplified, that we can approach the GCF and the GEF. And obviously, while this transition is important, we also need to be very careful. While Pakistan has very high part dependency towards imported fossil fuels and the private sector investments, so these IPPs have been contributing more than 60% in our capacity and more than 70% in the energy. But that's, at the same time, we need to evolve the risk sharing mechanism, because moving forward we need to have more balanced risk sharing mechanism to like transmit the benefit towards the whole population rather than a segment of the population. So we need to explore more innovative financing rather than relying on typical project finance. We need to decouple, de-risk this investment risk, and we need to have more kind of someone rightly mentioned that we need to have integrate the distributed solar generation into our national energy plan and policy, because that is a large area. So in that way we can have a very good balance of large grid connected projects and distributed solar solutions. So that will also empower the community and also provide affordable solutions, and also local employment opportunities to the local communities. So I think there's a need to revamp the process, not just switching the fuel from the fossil fuel to the renewable, but this need to overhaul the whole energy system, socially inclusive, environment friendly, and economically resilient. So I think there's need to work on that, and the government is, I think, very much familiar about these issues, and the Ministry of Energy is very active on the reforms, and there's some really good progress. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. May I just ask your view on how government can work with civil society and how civil society can work with government?
Yeah, thank you. So recently Pakistan has submitted the NDC 3.0, and NDC 3.0, the PPIB was leading the mitigation part. MD PPIB was chairing that group, and we have 5 different sub-working groups, and that process was really very inclusive. There was number of sessions with the civil society. SDPI is very engaged with PPIB on the NDC 3 and other such issues, and they have conducted many sessions. We, PPIB and Ministry of Climate Change, have conducted various sessions with the different stakeholders. The civil societies were invited to participate in those sessions. But one thing I would also like to mention, and that is for the consideration of the escape. While we talk about the SDG 7, so so SDGs are important for might be for the policymakers. But if we want to make it more inclusive, sometimes even the civil society honestly don't represent the remote community. Civil society sometimes mostly represents the elite and the educated lot of the people. And if we want to include those people living in the remote areas, so I think we have to adopt some different approach. Civil society is effective, but for those people, might be the SDG terms is not important, energy transition is not important, but the poverty alleviation, the access of energy, affordability is very important. And we need to include the civil society, but at the same time, we need to include the policy making and implementation process more inclusive, taking it to the ground, grassroots level, to hear the voices of the community and the marginalized people.
Thank you so much for sharing that view, really. And I hope there's some follow-up after this. I want to bring in Suba. Any thoughts after hearing the questions? And there was one question on financing that was interesting too.
Yes, maybe I'll just respond to the gentleman who raised the question of collateral. So I'm not so familiar with the situation in Pakistan. I assume the collateral requirements for household lending, solar lending is high, just like in most of Asia. The two approaches adopted by other countries is one, first of all, to look for third-party guarantees to the bank that provides the individual loans, whether this is the contractor who actually builds the solar themselves, guarantees of performance, guarantees of capacity, MDBs providing guarantees, which should then reduce the collateral requirement. The second is in the US and other countries, they have linked the savings from utility bills to prove that the household has the ability to pay the original utility bill. Now the utility bill has gone down because you have solar, and therefore the requirement for collateral is not so much. So it's just a couple of examples. Thanks, Mikiko.
Thank you very much, Suba. On the dais, anybody else would like to maybe contribute, respond? Yes, please, Ambassador.
Very briefly, just 2-3 points. Carbon financing, I mean, I think that's a very valid point. And one request that we would like to place to and other platforms, of course, the think tanks, to how to build the capacity for countries like us, especially lower middle income, low income countries in South Asia, how to tap into the international carbon market. That's one aspect, but also on the other side, we see these new incarnations of trade protectionism in the name of carbon border adjustment tax, which would affect many of our countries actually. And how do we respond to those kind of situations and adapt to those kind of situations? So that kind of feedback from the generators of knowledge products like SCAP, SARC, SASEP, and SDPI would be quite crucial. I'm very happy to hear about biofuel and biomass and all that. Currently, actually, in SCAP, within SCAP, we are thinking of bringing forth this issue of bioeconomy, which is very much related to the whole green and circular economy related issues. Perhaps in the Asia-Pacific region, it is high time that we try to look at the whole question of bioeconomy in a comprehensive manner. And someone has mentioned the International Biofuel Alliance that India had launched as part of its G20 presidency. And these are kind of initiatives that we need to advance and accelerate across the region, and would be welcoming Pakistan, different stakeholders to also join hands on that particular issue. And lastly, absolutely, I mean, I think earlier this year, we heard the UN Secretary General saying that globally, investment in renewable energy generation has for the first time surpassed the investment in fossil fuel-based energy generation. But we have to be mindful of the fact that that is definitely not the situation in South Asia, particularly in South and Southwest Asia. I mean, but there is a reality behind it. As I said, we are still lower middle income economy. But to assure our younger generation, many countries in the global South are actually leading by example. Just now sitting here, I got the information from the Bangkok Post that Thailand has just announced that they are advancing their net zero pledge initiative by 15 years. So earlier it was 2065, but today the government announced that they would kind of, if there is a word, prepone it to 2050. But Thailand again is an upper middle income country, so the experience is probably not immediately relatable for countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan. But what I'm trying to say that let's not lose hope. 1.5 degrees centigrade should continue to remain our lodestar. And we have just submitted the NDC 3.0, all our countries. And let's see how we can accelerate that momentum further. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. And I just want to respond question regarding the civil society. They said that civil society is from elite class. I'm not sure why they are just considering the capital CSOs as a CSOs. Civil societies are working in ground level. And even as Sarah has mentioned that Tata in Sindh is the biggest wind power plant, but unfortunately their people do not have the electricity. And electricity is bring from other rural areas to higher, bigger cities, not to the actual communities. This is the lacking. And sir must accept that they are not involving civil society in decision making. Just inviting one people or two people from capital city, that is not civil society. Actual society is working on the ground. So I request sir to kindly consider it. And we have forums, we have networks nationally and internationally. So we can cooperate with you and we will provide you all support whenever you require. Thank you.
Yeah, Makiko, thank you. Just three things. One in carbon trading, maybe SARC Energy Center, sir, instead of, no, not instead of, in complement to energy trading, carbon trading can be considered as well from SARC Energy Center. Maybe a regional exchange that would be very beneficial for countries, not just in terms of trading carbon credits, but also capacity building as well under Article 6.8 of Paris Agreement that provides that capacity building of carbon trading and cooperative approaches that also liable for carbon credits as well. Second, I think we need to discuss more indigenization as well, because we know that energy transition is very mineral intensive, mining intensive sort of thing. So if we are indigenizing not just the technologies, but also how to sort of kickstart the urban mining process of circular economy and recycling these new technologies, particularly batteries and solar panels, that would be very helpful. Developing a circular economy industry from platform of SARC, that would be important. Third, again, inclusivity. If we bring people at the center of the policy planning process, I think that would be the way forward, particularly in terms of how to bring a societal transition in disguise of energy transition. For example, if there is a EV transition, EVs for whom? EVs for rich in terms of expensive four-wheelers, or EVs in terms of two-wheelers, three-wheelers that will eradicate power and bring more inclusivity to it? Are solar panels for whom? Solar panels for those who can afford it, or solar panels for those who really need those solar panels? So that should be the question that we need to have answers and bring policymakers, stakeholders together. Lastly, indigenization of knowledge is very important. We might import technology or technology transfer, but if there is no indigenization of human capital, I think that will not be sustainable. So we need to bring more industry, academia, collaboration, particularly learning from best examples from global north and indigenizing them to global south. That might be the good way forward. Thank you.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much, everybody, all the panelists, also online as well, also from the audience, the different questions, and also additional information, really rich. We will obviously, document this in a report and share with everybody. I hope that could also help you to, take it forward at where we are working. We'll also, bring this into the Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development as well. That's happening in Bangkok, where you have other views from other sub-regions and specific, things that SCAP can, support in collaboration with the other regional, sub-regional organizations too. We'd like to pursue. I think, this, even in this room, including the online, I mean, I think building good, what do you call it, practices, examples of collaboration, and I just take that example of the civil society government, cooperation here. If perhaps, some conversation, maybe SDPI can facilitate it to really how to do this, right, in a positive way, and also a beneficial way for communities, but also something that works from a government perspective as well. I think it would be really, really useful. It is about, building trust, building kind of relationships as well, going from the basics. So let me really thank everybody, really panelists as well. Really appreciated your contributions, your thinking, your thoughts, your presence, and also to all who have been in the room here too. And I hope this, this continues. I think there are other sessions related to energy during this week as well. But beyond that, I hope we can all work together towards just and sustainable, inclusive energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, dear participants. And we actually have a next session start at 12:30 to 2. It's related to sustainable cities and communities. If you are interested in this topic, please come to join us. Thank you.